welcome into another Chi Time, your conscious living show with me, Clara Apollo. And on this episode, I have for you Clayton John Ainger. Now, he is famous, or becoming famous, for this book that he's written called The Ego's Code. This is about understanding the truth behind your negativity. And I thought, wow, in this sort of arena that we're in here, there seems to be a plethora of information about positive thinking, positive living, and don't get me wrong, this is really important. But there's also the shadow sides. How do we deal with the difficulties that we have in our lives? And who can we turn to help point us in the right direction? Well, I think Clayton's your man, so let's get him on the line, ask him lots of questions about how negativity can reveal hidden treasures in your personality and soul, indeed. Okay, let's get Clayton here. Welcome to Chi Time, Clayton. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for having me. It's going to be fun.
Oh, come on. Should we spill the beans to the listeners and viewers as to how we serendipitously bumped into each other at this Dr. Joe Dispenza progressive workshop?
I know, it was really cool, wasn't it? Yeah, Dr. Joe's a great friend of mine. I love him. I love his work, and I would highly recommend his work to others as well as my own. So I love that we just bumped into each other. It was just so fantastic.
And of course, we just had these done. Ooh, quick flip of that. And because Clayton he does a lot of talks and workshops, and he's coming down to the south coast of the UK, and you just come back from Canada, so you are a global superstar on the lecturing, teaching front. But so I saw it all as a bit of a sign, really, and meeting you at Dr. Joe and thinking this is absolutely the connection that we have is already going on, because I know you'd was also been introduced to me by Karen Swain from Soul Traveller. And then I get into looking at the topic of what you're bringing through for us to discuss, apart from barking dogs, which is always good fun.
I'm sorry about that.
That's all right. I love it. Reality is the truth behind your negativity. Now, Clayton, we've got a lot of positive stuff going out in the world, a lot of, especially in the arena that we work in, of positive thinking and having a positive attitude towards your life. And don't get me wrong, I think that's really important. But what about the other side, the shadow side, the ways of, and is that where you're really bringing in your information?
It is. That's exactly, positive thinking doesn't work. And the reason it doesn't work is because when we're focusing on positive thinking, the underlying energy that goes with it is something is missing. Whether that we are missing love, or I'm missing money, or I'm missing my best career, or my best job, or whatever that is, and so the underlying energy that goes with that is lack. And so the message and the energy and the frequency that we send out into the universe is something is missing, i.e. lack. And so the universe responds, and it says, okay, have more of that, have more of that, have more of that. And and when I do my work and I do my events, I regularly talk to people about this, and people say, well, perhaps we should be careful about our thoughts. Well, the challenge about being careful about our thoughts is we spend 95% of our time unconscious on automatic pilot. And so we don't really know what we don't know, and if we're sort of drifting through life, then we keep creating the same things over and over again, because neuroscience has proven that we spend 95% of our time unconscious, and quantum physics has also proven that we spend 7.8 times per second in wholeness, so unconsciously. So I know, right? And so we're always in creation. So we're either creating from our negativity, or we're creating from our positivity. And the more that we can actually become aware of our life and what we want to create for ourselves in our life, then the more awake we will become, the more we'll switch from being on automatic pilot to actually being consciously aware of the car or the plane or our lives that we're driving. And as a result, we can then create the things and get them to come to us in the way that, the divine knows best. And
So we're looking for clues to find out how we get there, because you say if only 5% of our conscious mind is actually what we're really about, how do we get into the rest of it?
through practice and repetition, so, and looking and identifying the feedback. And, just coming back to that, if there's 24 hours in a day and I give you 8 hours a day for sleep, so that leaves 16 hours, actually only 1 hour in those 16 hours we're awake, we're actually in conscious creation. And which is actually quite phenomenal. So what I say to people is that, what do you want to create? So I literally just got off a coaching call with a client before we came on air. And this lady was going through peaks and troughs. And she was very aware when she was on her peaks, but she was ultimately going automatic pilot and then wondered what would happen when she went into the trough. And so, and that's the thing about negativity, is a lot of people say we can't see our unconscious, and I actually have a different truth system around that, and the fact that I know that when I'm experiencing negativity, this is a message from me to me that there's something I need to be paying attention to.
Yes, absolutely.
That I'm moving out of phase with myself.
That it's not something that's wrong. It's information that's coming through to look at, compassionately and kindly, but not to push it away.
Exactly. And here's the thing. Here's what happens. And this happens consistently. I'm on my events, and when I am working with people one-to-one, or in the readings that I do, and all those different kinds of things. When we push it away, we stuff it down, we try to, in the olden days, stick it in the filing cabinet at the back. What would happen is it would come back, and it would come back with teeth.
Yes.
And we would wonder why. And that's because all that negativity is, it's energy. Yeah. And if we can start to look at it compassionately, we can use that energy as a force for good in our lives, or to keep us stuck in the past. Because every single time we experience negativity, we are literally reliving our past in the here and the now. And it can keep us trapped, or it can release us.
So, because to go over the negativity, the connection with the past, and what we want to be living from is the vision of our future, isn't it? This is Dr. Joe speak, everyone. But, it's very true. So when you go over and over old problems and everything, are you not reiterating them? How do you get to be able to absolve them?
You reinforce. Every time you take your past into now, and your past into your future, you keep reinforcing it. So there is a very nice 4-step process, which I talk about in my book, to be able to deal with that. And so step 1 is awareness. Because if you come from a stance that when we experience negativity is a message from you to you, that something's not quite right how you think it should be. It's also a message that you've just gone back to the past. So every time we experience negativity, we are reliving the past over and over and over again in the here and the now, which means that we're not present. So step 1 is about awareness, and awareness creates presence. So the more we can become aware of our negativity, the more we can become aware of our stories that we tell ourselves, the more we can become aware of our reactions and our actions and our poor behaviors, the more we can do something about it. And so what I say is awareness creates presence, which brings you into the here and the now.
Yes.
But it doesn't lock us into the here and the now. There's something else we need to do, but it's the awareness brings us here. And then what we need to do, step 2, is to acknowledge and appreciate our negativity. So when we acknowledge it and we appreciate it, we actually give it a voice. And the second we start to give it a voice, we start to experience a bit of agitation. And as we experience the agitation, the energy is moving. So I've just run this event in Canada, and it was so fantastic. And I do everything on purpose. And so I was having so many emails, and my team were having emails from participants who were coming in extreme agitation. And it was so, why haven't I received this? Why haven't I received this? Why haven't I received this? And I would just email them and just say, fantastic, you're in the right place. I want you to experience agitation because it's the energy is moving, which is why we have such transformation in 48 hours. And so by acknowledging and appreciating, we're giving it a voice. And we can do this in a number of ways. We can journal. What I do is I do something called 2-chair work. So I will put my anger or my fear in a chair, and I would say, right, you, fear, you have energy that I need. And so what is it that I need to know that I'm not seeing or I'm not appreciating? And I'm having a conversation with it. I'm not in it. I'm having a conversation with it. And I will keep a journal, and I would automatically write whatever's coming up. And then the energy starts to move and starts to shift. And then as I'm starting to get that awareness, what can then happen is I then switch to step 3, which is then acting for my highest good.
Okay.
And this is, there is within shamanism, I read the runes. So runes are like a little stone with a symbol on, and each symbol has a meaning, a message, an action, and energy. And within the runes, there is a rune called Rado, which looks like a big capital R. And Rado is the rune of responsible right action. And this is about acting for your highest good. Now, if someone doesn't like what you say or what you do, provided you're acting for your highest good, that's okay. That anything they don't like is their stuff. What you don't do is if this is you and your natural vibration and this is where they are, you don't lower your energy. You don't compromise yourself by doing something out of obligation because you think you should.
Such a good point.
What we need to do is we can keep the door open and we can enable them to rise up. And, when we are being of service, we are maintaining our energy. We're not compromising ourselves. So, but if people don't want to rise up, then that's okay. That's where they are on their journey. We just don't make it bad or wrong.
But not to pull you down into it. I mean,
and it's very easy to do that. It's very easy because of the stories and the patterns. But if we have the awareness, which creates presence, and the acknowledgement and the appreciation, which locks us into the now, we can consciously start to go into creation and consciously start to act in a way for our highest good. And kindness is so important at this point, because this kind of journey, Clara, it can be clunky. It can be bumps along the way. And one of the biggest challenges with that happens is we beat ourselves up. And my wife, Lindsay, talks about having a common sense corner. So on my events now, we have a common sense corner. And people, when they're having a hard time, they'll just go and sit and have a sensible chat with themselves and say, look, this behavior that I'm repeating is not serving me. So let's do something different, and we'll get a different result. And people have been sending me photographs of their common sense corners. And one guy sent me his common sense tree, which is awesome, right?
Oh, that's great.
So, it's really important as we go on this journey that we're kind to ourselves, and we nurture ourselves, and we love ourselves, and we appreciate our negativity, and because it's part of us. And it is not, the ego is not the enemy within. It is not the enemy within.
What is it then?
Okay. So here's a little bit of a curveball, and then I'll tell you about step 4.
Okay.
So every person who is listening to this show is on a soul's journey. And as part of that soul's journey, we have experienced traumas. So we've experienced traumas in various different lifetimes, in this current lifetime. And as a result of that, it creates tears in our soul. And as it creates a tear in our soul, part of our soul leaves and goes to a place in consciousness where it feels safe. And so that leaves a hole in the soul. And then what goes into that hole or that void is all the negativity associated with the trauma, and it gets sealed off. And then at the point of incarnation, what happens is the higher self, which is our true self, and that's omnipresent and is everywhere and communicates through love and joy and gratitude. And we just love that part of ourselves, that's the divine, splits into 2. And you have, keeping the numbers clean, 99% of us remains the divine higher self. Out of the divine half, the ego is created and represents just 1% of us. And so the ego self and the higher self are one and the same thing. I know. And so when we make it bad and wrong and the enemy within, then we're making a divine part of ourselves wrong. Now, here's what happens. Is the ego becomes programmed with all the negativity that's associated with these traumas. And then it acts like a beacon, and it sends out signals into the universe or the quantum field or the divine spiritual system, whatever label you want to call it. And it attracts to you situations, circumstances, and people so that you can learn. And then it clears out, with the learning, it clears out all of the trauma, and then enables the peace of soul to return. And so when we get agitated and we don't pay attention and we don't give our voice the right of expression, or our heart, the right of being felt, I should say, the ego goes into its ego's playground and says, okay, we need to heighten because this is important for you in our life. And guess what? We continue to ignore, and so it heightens even more. And what happens in the physical body is we experience stress and we go into survival. And when we go into stress and survival, the body triggers and goes into high beta brainwaves. And when we go into high beta brainwaves, we can't think clearly, we can't feel clearly, and we certainly can't create what we want to create.
We can't access our spirit and our soul, can we?
No.
So does this explain sort of the whole twin flame thing? When somebody sort of pushes your triggers, they're actually part of your soul's pathway of like, you need to be seeing this stuff?
Absolutely. So my wife and I, we have an amazing twin flame soulmate relationship. And the twin flame element, we just shine when we're together. We just radiate when we're together. It's just glorious when we're in our groove and our flow, and the divine within us just works together and combines. But then you have the other extreme, which is the soulmate element of the relationship, where we stretch each other, and we push each other, and we poke each other, and we drive each other bonkers. And so that's all about the learning element that we, from a soul's perspective, we've contracted to do. And so when we actually surrender to that, the twin flame gets to shine brighter. But what we tend to do is we can do this. And when we go into the agitation and we go into the fighting, and we miss the whole point of the twin flame. And so, and this is the same with the divine ego and the divine higher self, because it's not one or the other, it's both. So what can often happen is the ego will communicate with you through your mind, and the higher self will communicate with you through your heart. And so what happens is that the head tries to rule the heart, or the heart tries to rule the head. But it's not one or the other, it's actually both. They are a partnership. And when they come together, the interesting thing is there is no mind and there is no heart. There is actually just the divine. And you're experiencing wholeness. And this is when you are in flow. And this is when you experience it consciously as opposed to unconsciously. And when we experience it consciously, we can create magic. And we can bring our future to us. And, we don't have to wait 3, 6, 9, 12 months. The work which I'm doing is around 8th dimensional creation, which means it can come to you with almost immediately or within 24 hours. And I'm seeing people do it regularly over and over and over again when they just connect to the divine. They become a vibrational match to the things they want to create, and it just flows to them. Which brings me very elegantly to step 4.
Thank you for remembering that.
And step 4 is acceleration. And how do we accelerate? And that is through meditation, or your life becoming a walking meditation.
Yes.
Because I was talking with somebody a while ago, and they said, well, I need to change my energy through meditation. Yes, that is a beautiful way to do it, because we are divine beings and you can never have a bad meditation. And even when the mind starts flying around all over the place, the intention is still to connect to the divine. And I'm going to say, and we also need to be able to do this whilst we are awake.
Yes.
Because we are beings that have eyes, and we live in a beautiful world, and we need to be able to fully experience that. And so when we experience negativity and the agitation that goes with that, I just say to people, get excited.
Yeah, follow it.
Follow it. See what comes up. Allow it, because it's part of our flow. People think they're actually out of flow. They're just moving out of phase, and because the ego is trying to move you back into flow. And when we ignore it, that's when the bad things happen.
Yeah, and there's a lot of bad rap about how to actually express your anger, isn't there? And you see how much fear and anger there are in this world, and how much the media manipulates that to sort of control us. How do you think people can really stay in their truth when what's being reflected from outside, which we're told is a reflection of our inside? It all gets quite confusing. That to be able to navigate a clear pathway for yourself. I mean, you've mentioned meditation, but we're trying to all change the world for it to be what we want it to be, what we know our hearts are singing for, and yet we've got all this murky, muddy fear and anger going on. What do we do with that?
Okay, so that's a really, really great question. So here's the thing. So I have a very close relationship with Mother Earth, Mother Nature. So if you think about anger, if you think about a 3 or 4-year-old goes into a fire station, and one of the firemen passes the 3 or 4-year-old a hose, and then switches on the hose full. It's going to go. It's going to go.
Top fun.
It'd be really good fun. But if you imagine that hose represents anger, that's not grounded, then it can become chaotic.
Yeah.
And anger is a very, very powerful and potent energy. And it's a very powerful creator. So I'll give you an example. On the 17th of December 2005, I know the date, I'll explain why. I was having a really bad day, but it turned out to be a great day. And I was extremely agitated. I was angry. I was cheesed off. I was driving down the M4 in the UK, and I was having a rant at the universe. And my rant was, I demand, and all this anger came up, my twin flame soulmate. I demand she is in my life right now. And then my phone rang. And there was a guy called Joe Williams, and Joe had called me from Colorado and said to me, would you like to come to my first speakers boot camp? And I said, hang on a minute, how did you get hold of me? And he said, well, I called your mobile. And I said, I appreciate it, but what mobile number did you call? And he called a number that did not exist.
Oh, great.
I had cancelled the number 5 years previously. It was the only number he had, and the universe had conspired to bring us together. So then what happened is that I said, yes, I'll be there. It's in Colorado. What he didn't know is that I had no job, I had no home, and I had no money at that point in time. I needed to find $5,000 for the course, $3,000 for the flight, and another $2,000 for the accommodation. And within 10 days, I had created a job, a home, and the cash to be able to go.
Wow. I won't ask you what you did, but...
So then what happened was I went to Colorado and literally walked into the speakers boot camp, and the first person on stage was a lady called Lindsay Harrison.
Your missus.
Who is now my missus, Lindsay Ainger. And Lindsay's birthday is the 17th of December. And the irony as well is that the universe has a real funny sense of humor, because Lindsay actually lived about an hour away from me in the UK, and yet I traveled 10,000 miles to go and meet her in Colorado.
Brilliant!
Right? So here's the thing. When we're creating, and this is the challenge with negativity, when we create through negativity, we create through this lens. And we say to the universe, this is what I want, this is how you're going to bring it to me, and this is what I expect. But actually, then you're then saying to the universe, I know better. And the universe will respond, because what through this is control and lack. But actually, when we take this away, we say to the universe, okay, bring me this or something better.
Something better, absolutely.
The universe then responds and says, okay, they're on it, so they're doing their bit, and I got goose pimples. We'll now do our bit, and so this is how we can then align our energy vibration to what we want to create.
So this is transforming the energy of anger, because that's based in the liver from Chinese medicine perspective, and
Yeah,
the liver supports the heart. So when you express it, like, so you have that conversation with the universe, or I'm ranting about this, I'm ranting about this, and it vents your spleen, your liver, I don't know, you're venting anyway, and that gets that out, that gets it expressed. But then when you talk to yourself, I don't know, I do, I talk to myself, and it helps me to work things out. It's like, what
yep.
is that? But if I suppress it and make it go in, like ignore it, which is what I used to do, I think, oh, I'm a kind person, I'm not angry at all, and that's just so not true. I guess
And it just bubbles up. It's like a volcano waiting
it'll
to
just
erupt.
come up. We do these great qigong moves where we kind of vent the energy from the liver, but as soon as we've released it, we then draw fresh new chi back in. So you're always exchanging old for new. So if you want new stuff in, you've got to clear out the clutter.
Exactly, and it's energy that you need for creation. And what I say to people is this: is if you imagine the energy it takes to put a rocket into space.
Yeah.
And if I say to people, we are energy beings, right? And we have that same energy trapped in our lower three energy centers that needs to be moved up and out. It needs to be expressed. But the challenge is, and this was one of my challenges about expression. Lindsay used to say to me, and she says to me every now and again, so is this celebration on the inside? What's going on the inside? Would you like to show that on your face? What's actually going on? Is the carnival on the inside? Because men, we don't have this tendency to truly express what's going on.
Right.
And so it's really important. And women do the same thing. It's really important that we need to feel safe and free to express without compromise.
Of who we really are, otherwise we're just sort of putting the facade on and pretending. I mean, there's this real antidote to all the selfies going on, and I think it's us that are of a certain age as well. Well, yeah, as we're actually being our truth more and more and more. I think the older I get, the more feisty I become, and the more clearer I become, because I don't care what anyone else thinks anymore. I don't want to upset anybody else, unwittingly, but actually, is it that lovely saying that what someone else thinks of you is actually their problem? It's nothing to do with you at all.
Exactly. And this is the whole point about acting for your highest good. If someone doesn't like what you say or what you do, then that's their stuff.
Yeah,
and you can invite them on their journey with you, but if they're not ready or they don't want to come, that's okay.
Exactly, but move on and not be held back, and it is like choose who you hang out with. I mean, we're coming towards the end of our interview here now on Chi Time with Clayton John Ainger. I know I'm gonna have to do some more. I think it's so juicy. I'd love it because it's sort of the new year time, so we're coming into sort of new year pledges, and I just wondered if there's something that you could share with listeners and viewers around how they could envisage their new year.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. I think that's really beautiful. So when you go into the new year, it's all about creation. And when people say, new year, new you, how about new year, real you?
Oh, nice.
And what goes with that is that when you're focusing on creation, focus on the feelings and emotions that you want to create. Because, it's very easy. We can intellectualize. I'm working with some people at the moment who are very advanced in the work that they're doing, but they're struggling with creation because they're intellectualizing as opposed to feeling it.
Yeah.
And what I say to people is just metaphorically, just chop your head off and just go inward and feel what you want to create. So if you want to create a new job, don't put any rules around how that needs to come to you. Focus upon the creation of that. So how will it feel? What are those top 4 or 5 feelings that you will experience when it is in your life right now? Not, I'm going to experience them when it's here. You need to tell the divine now that this is what you want and this is what you want to create.
Could I add something to that, Clayton?
Yeah, do it. Yeah, go for it.
The way that I run that is in meditation. So I take myself into that space so that, you say we can write journal, whatever, but the thing that you brought up was so key was the intellectualization. It's like, stop thinking, come into feeling. And where best to do that but in your meditation space, where you've already set it up, you know, the phone's on silent and you've got a do not disturb notice. You can actually be present, because we are all so highly distractible. I mean, I know I am still very. And so I need to place myself into a place where I can just be with me, and then I will imagine it. I'll imagine the feeling within the meditation, and that's somehow really...
And just coming back to, so I want to close out a link, because I'm just conscious, and I'll link it into that I didn't mention about the fire hydrant, you know, the fire hose, and that kind of thing. And it's the same for creation. When you work with Mother Nature, it will ground the energy.
Yes.
So you can actually be potent with it. And it's the same here. You know, it's about if you go into nature and you spend time in nature, or just sit with a tree and journal or create. The tree spirit is called a dryad, and this freaks people out in a really funny way for me, because they often feel like the tree is hugging them.
Yes.
And actually the tree spirit will just bring their arms and will help you to ground that energy in, so you can create what it is you want to create in your life. And then that makes the feelings even more potent and real.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's just one line of the other thing, which Dr. Joe talks about, which I think is really important, is don't just do it in your meditations. When you're sat in the car, the traffic lights, do it at the traffic lights. When you're doing your shopping, do it when you're shopping. If you're stood in the queue at the bank, do it, you know, think and feel about it then.
Yes. Yeah, I know what you mean. It's walking your talk all the way through. I mean, I've just... Okay, at this progressive workshop, I'm part of what I was going into in the meditations was meeting my new home, because I haven't had a home of my own for 3.5 years, and it's time. And so I visited it in that meditation for the first time. It's great. I love it. And now, of course, I'm always going back there. I'm nipping home, you know, and it's like, it really works. I set it up in the meditation, and it's there, it's present. And one day I'm going to walk in somewhere, I'm going to go, hello, I know you.
Exactly. So, you know, if there's one thing people should take away, it's very much centered around give your negativity a voice.
Yes.
Allow it to, it's part of you, you know, and it's an energy that you need so that you can create the magic. And if your goals do not scare you, they are not big enough.
Brilliant.
If you're not experiencing resistance and agitation, then you're playing safe. And push yourself beyond the boundaries of what you think that you know, what you think you know, because the divine knows better.
Yeah, absolutely, Clayton. It's been an absolute thrill having you here on Chi Time. Such fun. And I know that you love your music as well. And I would love for you to introduce a track that you've chosen to play to be listeners. It won't be to viewers because of the whole YouTube licensing thing, but for people who are listening to this on playback, we're going to play you. What are we going to play?
We're going to play Robbie Williams' I Love My Life.
And why have you chosen that?
Because it's, you know, it's about when you love your life will love you back.
Yes.
In my book, I talk about the eight truths of creation, 8 truths of living your life. And, you know, and one of them is all about love your life. And when you love it, your life will love you back. And that means that you're loving yourself as well. And it's just beautifully, and I got goose pimples just even and talking about it, and Robbie just sings it so beautifully because I feel he's actually singing it to his daughter as well. So it's, you know, it's just an amazing song.
God,
so
it is really that to go from complaining. So don't talk about your operations to people anymore. Talk about what it is that you really love about your life, because then that appreciation grows, because what you focus on grows, and you know that energy of appreciation.
It is. And if you think about Robbie Williams, you know, I don't know him personally, but you see various things in the press, but he has been on his own journey.
Yeah, absolutely.
Through his agitation, his negativity, to, you know, falling in love, and he's always wanted to be a dad, and he's got these 2 amazing kids, and, you know, and he wants his kids to grow up loving their life. And
we want our kids to grow up in a world that is sustainable. And, you know, that may be another topic for us at some point. That's really close to my heart, that one. But until the next time, Clayton, John Ainger, thank you so much for being part of Chi Time here.
Thank you for having me. It's been wonderful.
We look forward to seeing you around the country very soon.
Definitely.
Okay, here's Robbie. Hello and welcome into another episode of Chi Time, your conscious living show with me, Clara Apollo. And on the line I have for you now, we have Clayton John Ainger. He is a business consultant, spiritual guide, author and intellectual speaker, or should I say best-selling author indeed, Clayton. Yeah, welcome.
I am award-winning best-selling author.
Award-winning. Oh, you did the International Book Award for the Egos Code. Congratulations, man.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So, as we're into the sort of the new year vibe coming up, and what we've just been chatting about behind the scenes is like, how do you take care of yourself? Because I noticed that everyone that I talk to on Chi Time, either successful speaker or motivational coach, whatever, they've all got a very serious personal practice. And I know that it's become the game changer for myself. So I'm going to ask you your thoughts on personal practice and what it is you do, if you're up for sharing that with us.
Completely. Absolutely. I think it's really, really important. So the very first thing that I do is whenever I have any negativity come up, I make sure that I spend time with it, I appreciate it, and I actually learn from it. Because it's energy that I want. And, I don't want that actually keeping me stuck in the past or keeping me stuck in my life. So I want to make sure that gets expressed. The other things that I do is every morning, 6 a.m., sometimes 4 a.m., I'm up, I'll meditate. I'll meditate minimum of 30 minutes, maximum about an hour and a half, because I want to be able to connect with the divine within me. One big practice that I've learned from working with Dr. Joe Dispenza over the last 4 or 5 years, and he's a close friend, is very much centered around creating my own life. What is it I want to create for my day? And I notice that if I don't do that, then my days don't go as I would want them to go, because I'm a busy man. I run a busy consultancy. So that's a practice which I make. A new practice and something I've been working with and mastering over the years is around healthy eating. So I do, I drink lots and lots and lots of water, but I also have over the years enjoyed my sugar. And the sugar has had a negative impact upon me as opposed to a positive impact upon me. And there is certain chocolate which I cannot eat, which I can't say, which actually makes me really agitated.
Too much sugar.
But I've noticed when I would come off my events, as an example, that if I had this certain chocolate within 3 to 4 days of having chocolate, I would start to get angry and agitated. Oh, what's that? But it's the only thing I would introduce, so I had to take that out. And so I'm very wary now about what chocolate I physically will put in my body.
Well, also because everyone's looking for energy, aren't they? We all want energy. So we're looking for sugar, caffeine or whatever. So what is true energy? So you come into taking care of yourself and you're more likely to give yourself better energy.
And people saying, on my last event in Canada very, very recently, this lady came up to me at the end and she said, "This weekend has been bonkers." And I said, "What do you mean?" And she said, well, she would often have 12 hours sleep a night and wake up feeling tired. Yeah. And over the course of the 48-hour detox, she probably had about 6 in total. And she said, "I feel the most alive I've ever experienced in my life." Because we're connecting with the energy of the divine. And I want to be connecting with that. But I also need to take care of my physical body. So I am now working with an amazing guy called Lazo Freeman. I highly recommend him. He's an amazing man. He's like an angel, and he's helped me to understand spiritually my journey around health and well-being and food and what's going on the inside from a chemistry perspective and how that impacts upon my outer world. So there's lots of different things that I'm doing to be able to support myself, to nurture myself, and I would recommend everybody does the same thing.
Absolutely. No, it's that idea of self-listening, isn't it? You actually do know all the answers. But to get to that still point of being able to actually listen to your inner teacher. Yeah.
You've got to go inward. You've got to create that space and time for you. And that's the one other thing that I do. I have regular space and time with myself and my journal. I sit and I will be in creation.
Yeah. It's the only way to do it, isn't it, people? So even if it's only 5 minutes, get into a practice. And the most cheerful times are sunrise and sunset. So at the moment, as we're in the Northern Hemisphere, we're getting to see both of those. So no excuses, get out there and enjoy the cheerful time. And thank you so much, Clayton, for being part of Chi Time on UK Health Radio.
Thank you for having me. It's been an amazing time. I've loved it.
Oh, have a great new year.
And you.
See you
Merry
soon.
Christmas. Happy New Year.
Keep
Bye.
your chi up, my friends. Bye.